Hello, everyone. This is Adam Meister, the Bitcoin Meister, the Disrupt Meister. Welcome to This Week in Bitcoin. Today is February the 8th, 2019. And like the shirt says, strong hand. Oh, you gotta like this shirt. I love this shirt. Long-term thinking. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. Unconfiscatable. One Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. All right, so let's just jump into this. We've got a new guest and two old guests. First of all, the old guests. We got Chris coming in from Puerto Rico. We got Lorien coming in from Johannesburg, South Africa. And introducing Sarah, who is in Israel. Yeah. All right. So, amazingly, I've met all three of these people in real life, and I've hung out with them. They are real people. I can, you can believe me on that. So let's start off with a story of, is it true or isn't it true? The Quadriga. What's the name of that exchange, Chris, in Canada? Quadriga.
Yeah.
Quadriga. The bottom line is a lot of people were keeping some Bitcoin there, and they don't have their Bitcoin anymore. And perhaps the guy in charge passed away. It's been the talk of the town, though, and people are associating it with Bitcoin now and cryptocurrency. So, Chris, what's the lesson from all this? What have you heard?
Well, apparently they lost something like 21,000 Bitcoin. That's what I read. And, you know, I don't know if it's inaccessible, meaning like it's never going to move and they know where it is, or if it's somewhere and just no one knows where it is at all. I'm not sure, but I read something from the Kraken CEO saying that, you know, the story about what happened is totally unbelievable. I'm not sure exactly what he meant by that, but, you know, it sounds like people are really questioning whether this guy passed away or if he just kind of like went off somewhere with the 21,000 Bitcoin. So, and, you know, that's the risk with storing your coins on the exchange. You know, I know you talk about storing it on hardware wallets or, you know, paper wallets, things like that. There's a lot of other better options, obviously, than storing it on an exchange. But, you know, for traders, they have to store it on exchanges. So sometimes there's no way around it. But, you know, this is the risk that you have with holding it on the exchange. So, yeah.
Now, of course, it's another, I say it's lesson learned. That's why I'm bringing it up, you know, get your Trezor. But another reason I'm bringing it up is because Sarah is on the show, and Sarah knows about decentralized exchanges. You know about Bisq. Now, you can give us your thoughts. You can give us your thoughts on this situation, but then tie it into Bisq also.
All right.
What's going
on over there? First of all, I mean, I don't know a lot about this story, but I mean, it's sad to say, but there's always a possibility he was murdered. And apparently there was some money moving. I'm not sure about it. You know, it's just a really suspicious story. But in the only decentralized exchange, Bisq, that definitely can't happen. So should I tell about Bisq?
Yeah, please. I want to, because these last, before this even happened, I started playing around with Bisq, and I was like, this is great. They can't stop anyone, and this is going to be the future.
I mean, I think it's like the only decentralized exchange that it actually exists because it has like its own client. Because most of like the pretend decentralized exchanges on Ethereum, well, first of all, they're only for Ethereum tokens. So this exchange has like basically almost any coin and fiat. Like you have shekels, you have dollars, you have Monero, you have Litecoin, Bitcoin, and it's all like they use multi-signatures. And so it's very decentralized. They also have an arbitrator. They're going to decentralize that system later. But right now, I mean, you can trust the arbitrator because he's a developer. It's a really good project. It's been around for a couple of years. Their interface wasn't so great, but I managed to use it actually. Like it's like you can get a bank transfer for Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin, you know, like you have to just after you get the bank transfer, you authorize your Bitcoin to move out of the multi-signature. And so that was it's like really cool project. So they just came out with a new interface. I didn't try it yet, but I think it's better. And they're also building API where you could connect to the exchange and build your own graphic interface. So I hope that's going to make it better. Because basically, this is like a really important service. Because like for example, in Israel, when there was the big run up last year in the Bitcoin price, so banks were just not letting people buy and sell Bitcoin. And so if they could use Bisq, they could just trade it, and the bank can stop them because you're getting a bank transfer to someone just from a person. And trading altcoins and shitcoins and stuff like that, it's like there's not so much liquidity, but it's really safe. It's not going to get hacked. And also they're bringing out a DAO in a few months, which I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work, but I think it's actually going to be maybe one of the only really operational real like DAOs. So I think that's really interesting. I mean, like I'm familiar with the people that are running the project, and they really believe in in Bitcoin and decentralization. So I think they're going to do a really interesting project there, like with the DAO.
Yeah. So was that the latest news that Swedish guy was telling me about the other night?
Yeah, I think so. He said that they already have their DAO on the testnet, and they have a token for the exchange, and they're gonna what they want to do is they want to vote with the DAO to who to keep paying to help keep developing the exchange and stuff like that. I don't know, because I want to make it more like decentralization resistant. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I think it's going to be interesting to see if they succeed. It's going to be a really good sign. I mean, running it in a kind of decentralized-ish way with the voting.
I've got to say, now you brought up the aspects of the bank transfers and all that stuff. I have no idea about that stuff. So that was very interesting to me. For me, right now, as it stands with Bisq, it's like there's no know your customer. You can trade your altcoin for Bitcoin. And that's what I've played around with in very small amounts. And it's pretty easy. It's a good test of your skills if you've gotten into Bitcoin, you played around a little bit, and this is like the next level right there. And you don't have to worry about exchanges saying, oh, no, you can't withdraw anymore, because your Bitcoin is never there, actually. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
And so the guy who made up Bisq, like Manfred was the guy who came up with it. He can die, but it doesn't matter to, that's it.
Yeah, though, I mean, just to be fair, actually, if he would die today, there might be a problem, because I think he's still the only arbitrator. But he it's still he probably made sure that it's not going to get shut down if he goes missing. I'm really pretty sure of that, because they're very, very conscientious of all this kind of stuff.
Now before we go to Lorien's thoughts on exchanges and miscellaneous subjects, I want to go back to Chris, because Chris, you've played around with Bisq, haven't you?
Yeah, I downloaded it. I've been tracking it because I've been, following the Bitcoin Rhodium which is traded there. And it's interesting. I've also tried out their API, and it works. Actually, it's very convenient for on your phone. If you I've been using it to check the price of Bitcoin Rhodium, for instance, and you can just, on your phone, it's plain text, so you can just see it really quickly, as opposed to some of these other sites that take forever to load and stuff like that. So that works really well. With the whole being safer than other exchanges, I'm not totally sure about that, because I think like you guys were talking about, there is this arbitrator. The thing that Bisq does differently is the arbitrator can be someone different. I think you can maybe choose your arbitrator, something like that. I know in theory.
Also for altcoin transactions, or I thought it was only for fiat. Because the altcoin program can detect it on its own. That you don't need an arbitrator because you can see it on the blockchain.
I haven't looked into it, but if they don't have an arbitrator for the altcoins trading back and forth, I'm not sure. They'd have to use atomic swaps, and I doubt they've implemented that yet. So because especially with all these altcoins,
but I'm not sure you need it. I don't think it has to be atomic swaps for the program to be able to detect if the transactions went through.
One of the requirements for listing a coin there is that they have to have a block explorer. So I think that's what you're getting at, Sarah. That it should be if a coin has been approved for listing there, it has a block explorer that it can be confirmed that you sent your altcoin type of situation. I want to add one thing. You can't fake volume on there either, because you got to put a deposit, unless you want to lose your deposit. It's not like on some of these exchanges you can just say you've got a certain amount to sell and then remove it immediately. There you've got to put a deposit down, which I thought was a good addition. And yeah, and they do have a, you know, I know Chris, we're going to talk about this, and Chris is doing a Bitcoin crypto dividend, and they do have they have it listed on there how you get your coin listed, and if everything gets approved, then yeah, there's the other thing in this space is you have to bribe these exchanges to get listed, which is ridiculous. But that's just the way it is. With this, you just have to have certain technical qualifications to get listed on Bisq. So
Yeah.
let's oh, sorry, Chris. So you had something else to say?
Well, I was just going to say it seems like mainly you have to do the coding or be willing to do the coding to get your coin on there. I mean, that's sort of what I've seen from them. You know.
Yeah.
And it's not about money like the other exchanges.
Yeah, this isn't easy. Yeah, I mean we're in early days and everything, so you're right about that. You do have to.
They're doing an amazing job. I mean, most of the exchanges just built by one guy who's like working 24/7, and now they have 2 people, and they're already doing so much more. So I don't know. I think it like has a lot of potential if it's going to be usable.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
like you just can't shut it down. That's just really important to have something like that. Because you know if you can't trade the Bitcoins or the altcoins, I mean, what, like, you know, it's a big problem.
All right, Lorien, Lorien has not spoken yet. He has sat there patiently. Do you have any thoughts on exchanges, on Bisq, on this Canadian hack? Anything, Lorien?
Yes, well, I think, you know, what it shows is not so much that we need to start looking at realizing this dream of a decentralized exchange, but it's actually to seek a world where custodial wallets, exchanges, and so on are regulated. You know, if we had businesses that were audited, if they had to comply with anti-money laundering, if they had their tech stacks evaluated through security companies, that is how it's going to create consumer confidence. We're not going to be, you know, scared to leave our coins on exchanges where, for most people, not for tech-savvy people, that's the most convenient place. If you want to move your, keep your money, okay, you have to have serious tech skills. You got to understand Trezors, paper wallets, and so on. We need places where people can store coins in a custodial way. And the only way we will ever have those if we have businesses that are stable, they have reputation, they can provide assurance to us. So this is just another example of, this is always going to be a terrible place to trade coins and whatever you want to do, until we have an environment where government and the tax authorities are all in. They're totally happy with cryptocurrency, and they allow people to trade it, and that means the businesses that are now offering those services get to meet the standards that we expect.
Now you're starting to sound a little bit like Farzam, who was on the show a couple weeks ago, and who's also from South Africa. And are you reflecting the mood of the community there? It seems like South Africa is moving toward the direction that you're talking about.
I'm not reflecting any particular country's mood. This is the mood of business and how the world works. A lot of Bitcoiners are idealists, especially those that tend into that anarchist viewpoint. This is not the real world. It's naive to think that we're going to create a system that explodes in value, explodes in use, without governments and everybody being on board and law enforcement and so on. So I'm not reflecting a particular mood here. What I'm reflecting is exactly as Farzam does, the real world. We are involved with business, we're involved with banks, we're involved with governments, and we can see progress because government is getting on board. The countries where there will be no progress is where government is still worried that this is an anonymous thing that's going to be used for drug dealing and money laundering and capital flight. So that's just the real reality of it.
Whoa. Now, my two other guests, Lorien just said a lot there. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I disagree a lot.
Okay,
we don't want the government on board. If we wanted the government on board to reduce their ugly shekels, we don't need that. I'm not saying that Bitcoin is going to explode and control the world, but it's gonna exist if they want it or not. A lot of countries that hate it, people are using it all the time because they need it. I mean, we need it. We don't want these disgusting governments. I mean, it's good if some countries are going to get on board with Bitcoin, yeah, but that's not. I don't think that's how the world works.
All right, Chris.
The part I'll push back on is that it's hard to store your coins on a Trezor a paper wallet. I've done both. I mean, I do have a technical background, but you know, my mom has a Trezor, and I did help her set it up, but she can use it. You know, I don't think you need like an advanced degree to be able to use, particularly the hardware wallets, right? And you know, I think that these things are going to get better. There's no reason a Trezor has to be any more complicated than like Bank of America, right? You know, or a big bank. It's just you know, getting enough funding behind these projects to make them user friendly, and that's happening. You know, as the price of Bitcoin goes up. I know we're in a bear market, but you know, we're still a lot higher than we were 4 or 5 years ago. And you know, if as long as that trend keeps happening, which you know, I don't see that stopping personally. There's going to be more money funneled into the development on these tools, and they're going to get better. And things like Bisq is another example. You know, as the community grows and people want to trade more altcoins, Bisq is going to get more mature. Right now, it's, you know, it's pretty hard to use, but it's getting better. And all these technologies are going to be easier to use. And I don't see a reason why they have to be more complicated than like, you know, your favorite bank's UI. I don't see it. And governments are never really gonna like Bitcoin that much because they, you know, they have a monopoly on money. That's part of how you have a government. So I don't see that happening. You know.
Yeah, that last point there, Lorien, what do you think? You know, governments, they're not going to like Bitcoin too much ever because of their monopoly on money. And I mean, do you foresee like a bunch of Bitcoin banks that are approved by governments, and that's where people keep their Bitcoin at?
Yes, I absolutely do see that. I think, you know, when we think about government's role in this whole space, you know, all of us have that kind of Austrian gut reaction where we can't stand inflation, and we think governments, you know, abuse that power they have to inflate currency, to be able to afford to pay for the projects that are inefficient and wasteful and horrible, like war and so on. So that, of course, is something that I also agree with. You know, I don't like the fact that governments have a monopoly on money, and I want to take that monopoly away. I want to bring honest money back into the world, and that's what Bitcoin was always meant to be: create honest money. But it doesn't mean that a government can't exist. Of course, it's going to keep them honest. And as the system around us crumbles, which I do believe is happening, people are going to want to go back to a sound money system. And of course, gold, you know, gold is impractical for so many different reasons. Bitcoin is so much better. So I think that what's going to happen, though, is that we'll still have governments. They'll just be constrained in the same way gold constrained them. They'll be constrained by a monetary system by Bitcoin, but they can still issue currency. They're just going to have to make sure they have the Bitcoin as reserve. But this is the real world. You know, a lot of us think that the only way this can end, the only solution there is for this is when we utterly destroy the government system, and that's that anarchist approach. But when we say government, you know, what we're saying is, and this is what government want. You know, of course, those dishonest governments that like to print money, of course, want to keep that sort of power. But this is what a government wants. When we talk about regulation, they don't want to control. They want to have visibility. They want to be able to know what's going on. They want to know that money is moving from A to B. They want to know that if a merchant is accepting currency, that they want to know how much it is because they want to get their pound of flesh in form of tax. So what has to happen is that we need to push the message not of decentralization to the nth degree where they become irrelevant. But remember, and also decentralization is not the goal. Decentralization is the tool. And the tool, what is that? To have this immutable ledger with a stable fixed supply. And if you guys are all into Bitcoin, then you know what I mean. So this is going to be the ultimate outcome if Bitcoin is to succeed. And I'm a Bitcoin maximalist, also a purist. I think that
Bitcoin SV.
Yes, I can talk more about that if you like. But to finish the point, this is how it's going to be, where governments are comfortable that this is remember, Bitcoin is a public, transparent ledger, and the first currencies that are going to die are all those ones that are seeking anonymity, not privacy. You know, privacy is fine. You can be private, but as soon as you're anonymous, that's where government is going to have an issue. So we are looking for a world where we don't fight the system, because that is, as I said, is naive. You know, it's a revolutionary thinking, and you know, if you're lucky, it isn't realized and become disruptive. But if government know that they can see transactions, they can audit businesses, they can make sure that there's anti-money laundering systems in place so that people aren't doing all the things that they want to do, doing drugs and so on, selling drugs. Then we need to convince them that this is a transparent system that they can have visibility on. And that is, unfortunately, even if you have those feelings that screw them, we want to kill them, that's that naive thinking.
But you're saying on one hand that it's unstoppable, on the other hand, the only way it's going to succeed is if the government likes it. I don't know. I think your view of government does seem to me naive. I think
yes, but you're conflating two different things here.
It's way beyond saving. It's not going to like, hi, I'm the government. I'm going to take a step back. I mean, it's not like that anymore. I mean, it's beyond the state where it can go, the government can go and fix itself.
One thing I'd like to bring up is I think that the idea of KYC and AML is a relatively new thing. You know, if you look at how the system works before, like when we were on a gold standard and things like that, those things didn't exist. And you know, they've been getting more and more invasive in the last, you know, I guess over the last 100 years. But you know, like, it wasn't always like this. So like you can have government without having all these strict KYC and AML things. And, you know, just like you did on the gold standard, people would actually take gold to a bank and deposit it and get a receipt. That's how like paper money started. And we could go back to a system more like that and still have government, and they wouldn't be able to tax the same way they tax today. Like you were talking about looking at all the transactions, but they'd have to go to something more like tariffs, you know, which, you know, people are talking about tariffs a lot more recently too, you know. So I think that that's how government stays relevant. If we go to a Bitcoin standard, it's based on tariffs, and you know, people would have privacy with their money. And that's what I think.
Not so much tariffs, but it's sales tax. You know, sales tax exists. If you buy something at a store, you're not getting taxed. You know, the transaction is being taxed at the sale, and same with corporate tax. So I wouldn't say tariff so much, although a tariff is just, you know, a cost. But I agree.
Well, I mean, I think the reason the governments have relevance is like the most important reason is because they have guns and machines, war machines and stuff like that. They're scary, so I mean that makes them relevant. I don't know what Mr. Craig Wright thinks about that, but I mean, like in Israel, for example, the government didn't ban Bitcoin. It hates it, and people are still buying it. I mean, they've just been talking about the Hamas, if you're interested in that, Adam.
Yeah.
This week, like the Hamas is an Islamist organization. It's also
it's classified as a terrorist organization by the United States of America, and well, yeah. They're also been elected to like governments in Gaza, so it's kind of complicated. They got their money cut off, and so someone, supposedly the Hamas website, put up a SegWit address to receive money, and so it like made all the headlines in Israel. They were like, the Hamas is receiving Bitcoin, and I just read this article in like the main Israeli newspaper, and they were just like trashing Bitcoin. They were saying it was anonymous, which it isn't. They were really exaggerating about it. It was interesting. I felt like there was like an agenda in it. They were just reporting it. They were like being really alarmist about it. Even though some people checked it, they only got like $3,000. And the really funny part is that they found it was Coinbase wallet. They had a Coinbase account. They have a Coinbase wallet. They do.
I think it was.
It is a Coinbase. It is a coin. So they're going to lose their money. They're not getting their money.
They figured that out later. They bought a new address, and they also found apparently there's also a Bitcoin exchange in Gaza, and a lot of the money came from there. I mean, they did this chain analysis. It was actually very funny.
Well, yeah. I mean, part of the lesson in all that is, again, if you want your Bitcoin, you got to control your own private key, and you got to pound that like button right now. Now,
even Hamas knows that.
No, Hamas didn't know. Hamas did not know that at first. I mean, if they really had a Coinbase address, that's just naive.
I don't know. I mean, you never know. You never know in this world anymore what's real. It could be the Hamas, definitely. Probably some kid running their Telegram account.
And the other thing, Sarah, is, I mean, you're going to have to get used to this. I think you are used to this. Any negative organization that's connected to Bitcoin in any way, it's going to be blown out of proportion. It's just going to be blown out of proportion always by the media. They're going to exaggerate. I mean, they got to get clicks. So, I mean, yes, you got to associate.
It's like the war of minds between the Israeli intelligence and the Hamas. And apparently the Israeli Bitcoin Association, someone wrote to them and said, please stop providing service to the Hamas. Because they were confused.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion. Stop providing. That's a weird one right there. But I want to go back to, we're talking about illegalities and terrorists, whatever, and governments and government approval. Lorien, one thing that I brought up to you, you know of this also, people have put inappropriate images, to say the least, on the SV blockchain. How does the government handle that? I mean, what's the role there?
Yes, well, the fact is that all blockchains have had data uploaded to it. This is just how blockchains work. You can put random data in there. Because SV is going for, trying to remove all limits, op returns, block sizes, and so on. It's becoming a lot easier now to put data into that little field. But actually, the law does have a perspective on this, and it's not a new law relating only to blockchains, but relating to all IT systems that can store data. The fact is that if a business has a service, and what they do is they offer storage on that service, and you upload illegal content onto that service, the business itself, because this is within their legal, this is what they're allowed. They don't get. They're not breaking the law. They're not considered to be the ones breaking the law. So if you're going to upload a copied movie or something to the file sharing service, they're not liable. But if you have that data on your local hard drive, then, and you're an individual, not a business, then of course you're going to be liable, and you're going to be breaking the law. So when we look at blockchains now, it's quite easy to see how blockchains work. What we have is we have these mining operations, and they're looked at as businesses, and they hold full nodes, and they have all the data. And if they are now caught with information, obviously if they're indexing that information, if you have a service that's indexing the illegal files or the legal data, then of course, even if you're a business, you will get nailed for that. But if you're just hosting it and you're not, you just have them in your log files and so on, then that's fine. Now, miners, the whole idea around mining was that they were always meant to become these data centers. Even Satoshi Nakamoto said, mining is going to become a specialized industry where there will be large data centers, much like we have ISPs and data centers today. And what happens is they act as businesses. And because they are now holding these nodes, they have all the data, they're free.
Only miners should have them.
Now, this is the interesting thing about BTC. BTC is very different. BTC is going out of their way to make sure that everybody, individuals like yourselves, maybe even some of you do, hold a node locally. You're not considered a business. And the data that is now kept on your node, on your Raspberry Pi or whatever it is, because it's got illegal content, and I can tell you that there's illegal content or terrible images and stuff on BTC, that you are actually going to be breaking the law. So one of the aspects around Bitcoin, pure original protocol Bitcoin, was that it catered for that very issue.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think that is a very bizarre argument, which...
Well, that's the law. That's the law. Look it up.
I think it's a very bizarre argument. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I guess I respect your opinion.
It's not my opinion. That's the law. So if you go, you can go find that.
That all Bitcoin nodes should be considered businesses, and that's gonna solve everything. I don't know.
If you are a business, if you are a business operating a node, then you're not breaking the law. If you are an individual node, you are.
Because the pornography is like the Bitcoin blockchain, we need to have all of the nodes be businesses.
But hang on, like a business is really like I have several businesses and they're just pieces of paper, right? Like you could have a sole proprietorship. So if we want to say a full node is a business, okay, everyone's a sole proprietor. This is just like definitions, right? I mean, I don't get it.
Well, not really. If you are a business, you're going to have to be registered and so on. So you can call yourself
not necessarily. You can have a sole proprietorship without doing anything. You just say I'm a sole proprietor. So
great. Well, then you're fine.
I've got a question
Okay.
for something else that Lorien said. Lorien, you said anonymous, you like privacy, but anonymous coins, the governments are going to shut them down. So it seems like there's a lot of talk lately in the Bitcoin world about making Bitcoin anonymous. This MimbleWimble talk and just figuring out other ways. What do you think about all that? Do you have any thoughts on this MimbleWimble or on Zcash or Monero, or governments are going to shut them down? Or
yes, of course. I mean, I am a business. I'm a Bitcoin business, and I engage and work with regulators and government across the world. So I know exactly what they're thinking. I know how those meetings are turning out in the papers and the opinions that are being created right now, and all of them are without thinking about it. They already say if it's anonymous, it of course is not going to be allowed to exist. You might have Monero nodes and you might have Zcash nodes running, but you're never going to have the scale that you need to turn it into something that becomes, that changes things. I mean, you can have little, nodes, people trading amongst themselves, but that's not going to be significant. What they are moving towards is the transparency of it. And the privacy, if you're private, it's different from being anonymous. Bitcoin at scale, if we manage to get Bitcoin to scale to the world, and we have millions of transactions, billions of transactions occurring on the network, then you are going to be getting the privacy that you need. But you don't need anonymity. And in fact, if Bitcoin Core, BitBDC pursues the MimbleWimble approach and tries to be anonymous, they already have the issue of Lightning nodes being money transmitters. They're going to now have to try and convince, again, businesses to accept anonymous transactions, and no business will.
I don't think they're going to use the MimbleWimble and Bitcoin Core. A lot of people are suggesting they're going to use it as a mixer. You could go to like the green coin, then come back to Bitcoin.
Fine, then that's going to be okay. But as soon as there is anonymity, first of all, government is not going to like it. Second of all, businesses and consumers won't like it, because remember, you need recourse. If you make a payment to a service provider and they don't deliver, you need to be able to prove that you have now created a transaction.
But you can even if you have on a MimbleWimble coin, you can still prove that you made that transaction.
If you have the digital signature attached. So that's an issue that is also important, because we've got segregated witness in BDC. So that's going to be another issue that makes it not usable in terms of commerce as we know today.
The Israeli government already said that Monero and Zcash are considered suspicious for money transmitters. Like if a company accepts them, they need to know. It's like they need to check it, like to see if it's suspicious or not.
I want to thank Josh Kohlhout for sending $5 in the super chat. By the way, I forgot to say that. Pound that like button, Josh, and everybody watching the show live. I'm sure you're enjoying this, because Lorien, man, I want to ask you a question. I mean, you've been in Bitcoin for a very long time. I mean, like 8 years now. I don't even know what it is. It's like longer than most people I know. It's very long. Have you seen yourself change your attitudes? Like, have you gone from being an anarchist to, like, you seem very much in line with the government now?
I was never an anarchist, Adam. Well, not
an anarchist. I mean, have you gone through a transformation? Have you gone through this talk?
Yes.
You're about following.
Craig Wright installed aliens.
Yes, I have changed.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, change has been subtle. When I first got into Bitcoin, I didn't have a business. I saw. I mean, I'm from Zimbabwe, and I remember when the currency collapsed, and I was very anti the financial system. I hate the financial system. I think it's terrible. I hate the way banks work, and I hate the way central banks work. So Bitcoin to me was definitely freedom from that, and I wanted to pursue that at whatever the cost was. And of course, the narrative was always about governments are evil, we need to change things. But as I have been working in this space, and as I have been engaging businesses and growing the ecosystem in a way that's not what you see in on social media, but actually in the real world, in terms of how governments and corporations work, I realized that as much as I would like to become a revolutionary and change things and knock everybody off their pedestals, I've realized that the world doesn't work like that. You have to be a lot more subtle about things. And also, there are things about the status quo that you can't change. And when it comes to legality, there are a lot of things about the world that are not just evil based on central banking, but have been defined through law through many centuries. And Bitcoin, the Bitcoin that people are trying to seek now, at least in terms of the decentralization, the BTC approach, and also the Monero, that is breaking centuries and going against centuries of a legal system that is not what we're trying to fight. We like law. The world likes a legal place where there can be justice. And what we need to do is we need to now create a system. And again, Satoshi Nakamoto is misread when people think of him as anti-system. You know, he wasn't trying to go against the system. He was trying to create. He was trying to create a system that could work within the regulatory environment and within standard laws.
Also, Bitcoin can work within the regulatory environment, and it is currently working.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. When is the government going to shut down Monero and Zcash? And
it's
how?
Coming. Yeah, well, they won't shut it down.
When and how? I mean, what are they
won't
shut
it down. They won't shut it down, but they will make sure that no business can ever accept it, no legal business, no money transmitter can ever use it, no legal business that operates can ever use it and provide it.
It's very easy to, to watch Bitcoin, all the, every money that goes, they want to change into fiat. The company needs to say it's kosher. They can look where it came from. They can totally do this thing without changing to another coin, first of all.
But I mean, there would have to be a law that says that a business literally cannot accept certain coins and can't accept other coins. I just don't see where, I mean, you're basically saying that we're going to ban a certain kind of math. And at least in the US, I mean, that's what I'm most familiar with is I've heard that that's unconstitutional, right? Because you're saying that it's money is kind of like a form of communication. And I don't see how that can happen.
I'm not saying that it's going to be they're going to be banning the protocol or that'll exist. That's no problem. You can have Zcash and Monero. That'll never go away. There are people who want to hold it and run nodes. Of course, it'll never go away. But if you want to go and buy your groceries or pay your rent or pay your taxes or buy a bus ticket with it, that's not going to happen. So the use of it falls away. And what's the value of it? Apart from,
well, the value is that you maintain your privacy. For if you want to store value and maintain your privacy, you can do that. Even if you can't use it at the grocery store, you can transfer it to another thing that you can, like Bitcoin or fiat, like people do today.
Yes, but think about it. For something to have value, there must be demand. So why are people getting demand?
There's demand for privacy, and
yes,
I mean that's why did Monero have a $7 billion market cap at one point? It's because people wanted to have a private coin.
There's this meme. I think Andreas Antonopoulos came up with this meme about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency being free speech. Have you ever heard that meme before?
Yeah.
So what happens now, if you think about it, what you're saying is that you're saying that it doesn't matter that the coin can't be used in commerce or anything like that. It matters because you and I can have a private transaction between ourselves.
No, I
didn't say it doesn't matter. I just said that, if you can't use it at a grocery store, you can still, I mean, that's one use case to spend it. Another is to store it,
So
another is to use it on darknet markets. Those are all things that people use these coins for.
The ideal is to use it at the grocery store, but even if you don't get to that step, it still has demand for a much more life-changing thing. Just store values. It's saving your savings and preventing anyone from confiscating it. That's a big deal.
So if you wanted to buy something one day with your private your anonymous coin,
is there any place that accepts Bitcoin SV?
So if you wanted to buy something with or you wanted to use your anonymous coin for later on to to store your value, as you say, and then one day to cash it out into something of tangible value, real value, that you can then go and trade for a good or a service. So you're saying that there's a good enough demand use case for people to have an anonymous coin that they can one day sell it and then they can buy something real with it.
Well, yeah.
Well, I don't know, but all I'm saying is Monero had a $7 billion market cap. There must be a reason for that. People valued it. That
speculation.
People use it.
I mean, the speculation is based on that this is something people are going to need one day. They're going to need this anonymous. I mean, one thing I want to bring up is Litecoin. The rumor is that, the Beam people are working with the Litecoin Foundation to make a Litecoin Beam using MimbleWimble, and the price of Litecoin it went up. That is the reason. Now again, and that's purely based on speculation, of course. But there does seem to be some interest in the anonymous side of things. I'll say that. I'll say that. And it is very interesting, Lorien, the perspective. SV is what is it? A compliant Bitcoin? Is that what it wants to be known as? Or I mean, there's you see, we've got two different. We've got people who want to follow the rules, and then we have idealists, and then you're not as much as an idealist, you're saying, as you once were. I think that's...
Yes, so again, and I'm sure you know this, Adam, that the thing about Bitcoin SV is that it was Satoshi's vision, so it's the original protocol. It doesn't have things like segregated witness and RBF and so on. So it's the original protocol. So when you say, is this trying to be the compliant protocol? Well, it's Bitcoin. It was always what Bitcoin was meant to be. It was always meant to be something that was useful in trade and commerce, peer-to-peer cash, and so on. And again, if you want something to be cash, you want to be able to buy stuff with it, you're going to need to comply with whatever regulations are in place. So Bitcoin SV isn't this variant that is now trying to be something that is new. This is the original core protocol. This is what it was all about. And creating a peer-to-peer cash system where we can go and buy our groceries and pay our rent and pay our taxes in it. So this is the idea of Bitcoin. What has happened is that Bitcoin, through all the personalities and so on, the idea has deviated down into this anarchistic, extreme libertarian, not even libertarian view.
How can you let this insanity broadcast like this?
No, everyone's Sarah, you're not familiar with Lorien. People on here, every time Lorien's on the show, this is a pretty mild debate. The last two times it was going off the charts. The yelling and cursing and stuff that was going on.
What are you guys nuts? I mean, a compliant Bitcoin, is that what's going to win? You can make BTC compliant. What has Craig Wright done to you? What is this?
No, I don't agree with that.
Where's Alex?
I'm with you, Sarah. I am with you on this. I let Lorien speak his mind, and you guys can.
Yeah, sorry.
Here's a question. One question I have is, Craig Wright's vision of the blockchain is that you have these massive blocks, and that only a few people are going to be able to mine them. He freely admits it, that, and he talks about how hash power is king, right? But, isn't that going to end up in a state where you have a few people who control things like, for instance, the emission schedule, right? What happens when all of a sudden, okay, maybe the people running these farms right now are on board with this vision that we're not going to inflate the monetary supply. But what about 20 years from now when someone else comes in and they decide that 21 million Bitcoin isn't good enough, and hey, we run all the nodes, we're going to change it. Sorry, we're the only ones that are running the nodes. So how do you prevent that?
So Bitcoin, the thing that also people have kind of forgotten is that this was an economic system. It's not a technology system. It's an economic system.
Who told you that? Who gives you the authority? Craig Wright? Who is this? Craig Wright is a scammer? I mean, what the hell? Man.
No curse.
So Bitcoin is an economic system. And how is it secured? How does Bitcoin achieve the security? Well, through decentralization. Now, how do we achieve the decentralization, where we have businesses and people, whoever can have the capital to compete in an economic environment? And what they're doing is they're competing to solve blocks so they can earn rewards and they can earn fees. So through competition, what we are going to achieve is a system where you can't have somebody deciding, I want to now change the rules, because then they are the ones that get shut out of the system through the proof of work system. So this is the whole mechanic around Bitcoin. It was always meant to be a system that created economic incentives for people to be able to compete with each other, to be able to solve blocks. So, of course, we're not going to have a world where there are millions of miners. We don't even have that right now. Even BTC has very few miners right now. And so it's not about how many miners there are. It's about having sufficient miner people out there who are all competing with each other to try and achieve the proof of work. And that's the security.
Yeah, but if you look at what he says, he's talking about in this hash war, how he controls enough of the hash power, then he's just going to do whatever he wants. In other words, he has more than 50%, or he has a small group of people that have more than 50%. So I just don't see how those two things go together. He's saying, like, I'm going to be the the dictator on one hand, and then on the other hand, we're still decentralized. If you want decentralization, that's what the whole point of having not 128 megabyte blocks is, a smaller block size. That's what the whole block size debate was about.
What got you to move to Bitcoin Cash and then to Bitcoin
SV?
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, I've never moved. I've been on the original protocol since day one.
But there's Satoshi's protocol, which isn't the one you're talking about.
Bitcoin SV.
You're not using that one.
Bitcoin SV is the original protocol. It runs according to the white paper. So when Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Cash split up, so when Bitcoin Core and Bitcoin Cash split up, it was very easy for me to decide, because Bitcoin Cash removed segregated witness and replaced by fee and so on, and that meant that it was following the original protocol. When Bitcoin Cash and Roger Javier decided to create changes in the protocol to allow things like bucket shops and anonymous marketplaces, it was clear to me that that wasn't Bitcoin anymore, and I just stayed on the original protocol, which now is traded as BSV.
That's revisionist history, because if you read, Bitcoin Cash was started by one of the mining via BTC, I believe, and they just forked Bitcoin, and they said, hey, we're going to change things. They're the ones who forked off, and it wasn't until later that Roger Ver supported it. He was thinking about going on SegWit 2x, and he was still on Bitcoin, and then he decided, oh, okay, well, I'll go over here, and now you guys are saying it's the original. It wasn't.
Don't get confused between the protocol and a technical implementation of the protocol. The software that runs Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Core, Bitcoin's SV, whatever, that is just software. It's the rules of the software that matter, the protocol that matters. And when we talk about the protocol,
all these sentences from.
When we talk about the protocol, we're talking about the rules according to the white paper. So the white paper says miners compete in proof of work and so on. That's what, and they have signatures attached to the transactions. That's the protocol.
You sound exactly like our dear friend Alex, who also is on Bitcoin SV. We're very worried about him. If you see him, please say hello.
So the technical implementation, the software that runs it, that doesn't matter. You can have 50 different kinds. There are Java implementations, there's JavaScript implementations. It's not the software. What Bitcoin Cash did is they reverted back to the protocol, even though it was a different set of software.
What?
Well, that's not what they said they were doing. They said they were forking Bitcoin and they were going to create a bigger block size.
They were forking the software. They were forking the Bitcoin software.
Yeah.
Not
yes. What I'm saying is, and the initial story was, hey, we're forking, we're making bigger blocks. We're calling it Bitcoin Cash. It wasn't Bitcoin, it was Bitcoin Cash. Okay, it was different. And then now we're coming back and saying, actually, that was the real Bitcoin, even though we called it Bitcoin Cash at first.
When we say it's the real Bitcoin, when people say something is the real Bitcoin, they're saying that it is according to the rules of the Bitcoin white paper. That's what the real Bitcoin means.
That's what it
means.
Who
put in the 1 megabyte block limit?
Found that like button.
All right, Sarah. Everyone keeps interrupting. Sarah, you've had some things to say. I'm going to give you the floor to just give your opinion here.
I don't know. Obviously, I think all these forks are insane. I don't get it. I do agree. Like, some people on the Bitcoin Cash side say that Bitcoin isn't marketing itself well, that it needs to go to the masses, and I totally agree with that. But except that I totally disagree. I think it also failed. I think Craig Wright is a scammer. I don't know what he is. I think everyone who supports it, I don't know what's going on with them. And that's my opinion. I'm not really interested in arguing about it, because I think, like, anyone who could use their logic, they'll figure this out themselves. And I wish everyone well, on that. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's nuts. I really do. I thought about the block size. It's about this is insane. It doesn't make any sense. I don't even know what's going on anymore. And
all right. these when we talk, it's these shows with Lorien always turn into debates. Okay.
I don't know what's going on, but kind of funny. Yeah.
Well, I'll say this: Lorien is sticking with the. This is what the SV people say. You know, Alex, who we both have met in person, Sarah, he says the same thing. This is so let the people decide what is Satoshi's vision, really.
I mean, everyone can choose for themselves. If you want to choose the suspicious scammer that doesn't make any sense.
Well, there's idealism. I think there's the idealism of Bitcoin, and there's a compliant nature to what Lorien is saying. You know, let's follow.
Bitcoin is compliant too, so I don't even know what they're talking about. Because I mean, you can make Bitcoin compliant if you really want to. I don't know. I just don't really. Can't really comment on it because it doesn't really make any sense to me. So I can't it takes 10 more times effort to refute bullshit, and I don't know if I can. It's Friday afternoon.
All right. Chris, your thoughts real quick before we get back to Lorien.
No, I mean, that was pretty much it. I guess the thing I was saying at the end was that the person who put in the 1 megabyte block was Satoshi. It was initially 32 megabytes, and he realized that there needs to be a limit, and he put it at 1. So that's all I was going to say.
Are you sure it was 32? I thought it was just unlimited.
There was the maximum message size is 32. So there was no limit at the beginning, but there's an implicit limit of 32 megabytes because that's as big as a message that could be sent.
All right. So okay, we've had our SV debate of the day. Let's move on real quick because there have been other news, and I want everybody to talk about what they're doing too. Jack Dorsey bringing Bitcoin to the masses. Is this a big deal? Or Sarah, did you even hear about this? The Twitter founder. Okay, so you're not gonna.
That's nice. Also Gab and also Twitter.
Chris, is this a big deal?
I think it's great. I mean, smart people that build successful companies like Jack Dorsey that are playing around with Lightning Network, that's awesome, right? And, I could see it being really disruptive.
Actually, that's the point I should get. That's the point I should get out of this. He participated in the LightningTorch relay, where everybody's sending Bitcoin over the Lightning Network to one another, which it's a way of promoting the Lightning Network as a tool of sending small little transactions. Sarah, do you have thoughts on that?
No, I like the Lightning Network. We have it working at the Bitcoin Embassy for Smash and stuff like that. We've been using it a lot. We're having a workshop to install it next week. But yeah, I think it's really cool. I mean, it's really nice to see Lightning Network catching on pretty fast and working pretty smoothly. I mean, it's really cool. I didn't expect that when I got into Bitcoin to have immediate transactions. It's really fun.
Well, for those of you who've been familiar with the last 3 shows that Lorien has been on, now you will know, you can already anticipate what Lorien is going to say about Lightning Network. Take it away, Lorien.
Is it an altcoin?
So it's always great when public personalities talk about Bitcoin. I love it, and it certainly does get people into it, even if they've heard of it and been suspicious. As soon as somebody like Jack or some megastar says something about Bitcoin, that's perfect. We want the world to start becoming familiar with it, and of course, adoption always comes through media personalities and influencers and so on. Yeah, so I mean, it's a pity he's shilling Lightning, but apart from that, it's great.
Okay, I thought you were going to comment on the Lightning Network. That's fine. You do not have to do that. All right, so moving on. What do we got here? We talked about Mimble. Chris, did you want to add anything to the MimbleWimble stuff since you are working with MimbleWimble?
I mean, no, the main thing I was going to say is, we're working on this MWC coin with Andy Hoffman. If you get a chance, go back and watch Adam's video from Saturday to get the full details on what we're doing. But basically, we're doing an airdrop where people can register to get a MimbleWimble coin. The reason I started it is because, I was looking into the Grin project, and I thought the technology was really interesting, but the problem I had with it was that basically there's no supply cap. And I made some comments on their GitHub asking them about the supply cap, and I got my issue got closed in 2 hours by the lead developer, saying that you know, we're just not going to put this in our coin. I wish I had opened this as the first issue and closed it right away. But he didn't address the substance of what I was saying. And so I decided, you know, hey, I'm going to make my own version of this MimbleWimble coin that has a supply cap. And then, you know, I thought, you know, the best way to do it would be to do this airdrop where we give it out and reward Bitcoin holders. You know, we've got some criticism for that, saying that we're doing something bad. But, you know, if you look at, you know, I just think that Bitcoin holders should be able to get, you know, this to play around with, you know, and not just have it limited to like what the other offerings are. And, you know, so we're working on this project. And if you watch that video, there's full details on what we're doing.
Experimentation. Well, actually, on a similar topic, what do you think about the Zcash vulnerability? Since you're looking into these anonymous coins.
Yeah,
okay.
that's.
What do you think, Chris?
They can have a secret inflation, and no one's gonna know about it. And this project was really suspicious from the beginning, in my paranoid opinion. So it's not really surprising.
It's pretty alarming, yeah. I mean, you know, I mean, this could happen to any protocol, I suppose. But you know, I guess one of the things that I noticed is the people behind it said, "Oh, don't worry about this. No one knows. No one could figure this out, anyways." And I always was kind of suspicious, like, why are all these governments and, you know, more government-related people okay with Zcash of all the privacy coins? It seemed like it was kind of the favorite privacy coin, and maybe we have the reason here. I don't know. Maybe
so wait,
they knew
Sarah,
about
you think this vulnerability was planned? You think you're suspicious of that, or? Uh-oh, crap! Am I here?
I still hear you.
Oh, you still hear me? Good. Sarah.
Yeah.
No. What happened to Sarah? She's about to go wild on Zcash for us here. We'll keep that in mind. We'll keep that in mind. Okay. Remember, when Sarah gets back, we're going to ask her about Zcash. For now, I want Lorien to discuss Centbee, what he's doing in South Africa.
Yeah. So we got Centbee running on Bitcoin SV. I'm proud to say. And it's working great. We're getting tons of users from all around the world. You know, we like emerging economies and people who aren't you know, what we see in the Twitter sphere. And also we've got some cool products. We've got a very cool product right now that you can go down to about 250,000 retailers in the country, and you can go and buy Bitcoin SV with cash over the counter. So it's a voucher product. So it means that the retailer doesn't know they're selling Bitcoin. What you do is you take your Centbee wallet down there, you hand over cash, and immediately Bitcoin is loaded onto your phone. So it's a great way to get people who've never used Bitcoin into the system, and they don't have to worry about exchanges, and they don't have to worry about all that sort of stuff. So we're very excited about that.
All right, you're working on day-to-day transactions down there, which is a big. I mean, that's what you've been into this entire time, getting people to use cryptocurrency. So. I mean, you've stuck with your basics there. All right. Which is, I mean, yeah, you got to hand it to him. He hasn't changed, dudes. All right. Sarah, I see your shark. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So you were about to talk about, I asked you, we were talking about the Zcash vulnerability that was found. You think that was programmed in there? You think that was?
I think it possibly could. I mean, when it first came out, they said that if someone gets the secret code they need to destroy, they can have secret inflation. I don't know if this bug was exactly the same thing, but I mean, in cryptocurrency and money, if someone can steal money, you need to assume that they're gonna do it, because I mean, why wouldn't they want to? And especially like Zcash, I'm not sure if I know exactly how to explain why. I felt like it was slightly suspicious. The project, they made a whole like song and dance about having this ceremony, which afterwards was discovered wasn't very effective. It kind of felt like a lot of theater, and I I'm not in cryptocurrency, so I need to trust some people to do something right, so there won't be a gazillion more coins like devaluing my currency. It doesn't make any sense, and that's one of the things I really didn't like about Zcash, is that thing is possible. I think that's like, you don't want a cryptocurrency like that.
Well, it's odd. Edward Snowden said this is great that they caught this. This shows why.
Edward said Snowden is a shill for Zcash. Like he's like the last shill on Twitter. You can see him shilling Zcash. Maybe he's part of their organization as well.
He commended. He said it was great that the founders got a founders fee because they can catch things like this, and if they weren't being compensated, they wouldn't have caught this. All right, now
he's a shill also.
All right, now Sarah, I've got more questions for you. Well, I mean, you're here in Tel Aviv. You've been involved in Bitcoin for a while. You've got a very unique perspective here. You spoke in Asia. What was that at? Like the women of blockchain?
There's something about there was women from Asia coming to Israel.
Oh.
I did speak though in Europe twice about Bitcoin and stuff like that.
Well, tell us your unique perspective here. As you know, there are not that many ladies around.
Yeah,
and you've addressed this before, but and then you had to go through that Israeli conference where that guy gave that.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
There was the guy from the Israeli government was a real jerk. He was making jokes about not enough women being at the conference. Oh, so you guys don't come here to hit on women, huh? I was like, we were so shocked. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I've learned a lot about the difference between men and women. I think we need like much more women in this space because there's some things women usually naturally do. Like they'll be more friendly. They'll make sure people like to organize events and stuff like that. I don't know. My perspective is I was interested in Bitcoin. I was surprised there was a small amount of women. I've been volunteering at the Bitcoin embassy for about 3 years in Tel Aviv, and they're doing a lot of really great stuff. I mean, we're open 6 days a week to get technical help. We have like a hackathon once a year. We organize talks and stuff like that, and it's really fun because like Bitcoiners in Israel, they have a place to go and just hang out and talk, and it's like really really nice. And the Bitcoin Association in Israel is also doing a really good job. Like almost everything that happens about Bitcoin in the news, they have the head of the Bitcoin Association on television or in the newspaper. There's like a PR company they have working for them. And they he goes to talks to the Bank of Israel. He talks to like all these different companies and organizations and stuff like that. So in Israel, there's a pretty good amount of activity and community. I don't know what it affects in the big picture. I think maybe a lot more Israelis bought it because there's so much activism here. And the Bitcoin embassy is across from the stock exchange, which is really cool.
Yes, it is. And I'm there every Sunday. You were there Yeah, every Sunday they meet there, and it's really fun. And you do get to there's some different perspectives. There are guys and gals there. There's technical, non-technical. There's Alex there too.
Yeah, we love Alex. He's our pet Bitcoin Cash enthusiast. He's been in Bitcoin for a long time, and he's always been friends. And you used to always argue with him because he said Dash had more could go up more than Bitcoin. Actually, he was right, but I don't know what's going on.
All right. So, and you said something about bringing more ladies to the space. I mean, I think it'll come naturally over time. I don't think it should be forced. I mean, anyone can do what they want to do. I mean,
of course not forced. It's just I don't know. I don't know if I have any wisdom about it. I just know I think if you have a balance of men and women, you probably can get more done.
Yeah, I mean, everyone everyone has something they can contribute. You said something about planning. They can plan better, you think, or something? I mean, that's.
Oh no! I meant that I noticed because I met another woman from Japan, and she also I came to the Bitcoin embassy, and there wasn't a lot going on. But I started eventually just organizing a lot of events because no one else did it. And I kind of noticed, I talked to this girl, and she was like, I'm also organizing events because no one else will do it. So it seems that maybe the programmer guys, they're not the kind of people that are gonna organize events for people to meet and communicate. They're less aware of there's a new guy, let's be nice to him. Maybe is worth getting to know, stuff like that. I noticed that, and it's not complete, but I noticed that women tend to be a little bit more oriented.
Social creatures, social. But the funny thing is that you've got the technical skills up the. I mean, we're talking about ladies being social and making it easier for people to understand. You've got technical skills.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of irritating because people think because I organize events, they're like, oh, she just doesn't know anything about it. She's just organizing events. because obviously, I don't know, you don't like, not think it's so important, but it's sometimes you get like a weird attitude from people. But I think that after being such a long time in this space, I've learned to like, I don't know how to explain it, but I think it's like the more I gain more self-confidence about like what I know and what I understand. So also like people like random men also like they can see it. So they also less disrespectful to me. They have gotten a lot of bullshit that was like can be very hurtful. You shouldn't get hurt by it. So like I was part of the organization of like the last two hackathons for Bitcoin, and I was in the judging team the last one. So obviously I know something. And so then there's like this guy that was in the hackathon, and like I meet him later. Like I judge his project, and he sits down and tries to explain to me what the bleep Bitcoin node is for, and I was actually really offended. But you need to deal with that.
Yeah. Well, you do have the technical skills, and it's impressive. And there's a lot of dudes there with a lot of technical skills. I will say this, we need more marketing people, be them men, male or females, people who make it socially fun, I guess, and just able to spread the word. Just I think offline, you and I were talking about like if more people knew about this Bisq thing, it would catch on. They need them. There's a technical genius behind it. They need they need people spreading the word about Bisq. They really do, and making it easier, because it is a lot of fun. All right. Let's see. Well, let's wrap up the show now. Chris, any final thoughts? Anything left?
No, I think we covered it all.
Awesome. Thank you for being on, Chris. And take care of Puerto Rico. Well, anything interesting going on in Puerto Rico? I mean, that's a good question right there. I mean, that's supposed to be the haven, the Bitcoin haven,
Yeah, I actually wonder how many people that came here for Bitcoin moved away. I'm not sure, but because the price, But yeah, it's still nice here. It's like 77 degrees right now. So
yeah, there you go. Bitcoin people, why did you leave Puerto Rico? It's great. All right, Lorien, any final thoughts to tie up the show? What you've been talking about? Anything about South Africa you want to say?
No, but I've got something to say about SendBee. Why don't you try it, download it, see what you think. If you tweet a screenshot of your receive screen, I'll send you some Bitcoin SV, so go for it. It's always nice to be on your show, Adam, and it's nice to have chatted to you guys. Let's maybe meet one day in real life and have a cup of coffee.
No, Lorien and everybody's Twitter, it's all linked to below, so you can say hi to them and everything. And I think I did point this out at the beginning of the show. Again, yeah, I've hung out with all three of these people in real life. They're real people. They're awesome people. And Sarah, and I guess I'll probably see Sarah on Sunday or next. Sarah, any final thoughts? Anything you want to add?
Hodl. Yeah, watch out from. Don't watch any television. It's dangerous.
Don't watch television.
Dangerous.
Pound that like button.
Yeah. Pound that like button. Strong hand. 2020.
Strong hand. 2020. Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. All right, dudes. That was a good show. We had everything on the show today. So spread the word. We do the This Week in Bitcoin show every Friday. And since I've been in Israel, it's been early in the morning for you Americans. Maybe we'll switch things up somehow and put it on a Thursday so you can watch it. I don't know. Anyway, I do a new show here every day. Also, Saturdays, the Beyond Bitcoin show. So tune in then. Follow me on Twitter at TechBalt, TechBalt. And disruptmeister.com. You can watch all my old videos. That is it. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I will see you tomorrow night. So thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.